Despite the awful quality of the previous video, man, that did some numbers, which shocked me because back in the good old days, kids like me would get hate comments under their videos and would be told to game end themselves on a daily basis. God, how I miss the 2010s. Now, because of nice people actually existing on the internet, I feel compelled to finish what I started instead of making part 1 and dipping. Just like in part 1, I limited myself to songs that were easily available on the wiki. This time I tried to find most of them myself. And by finding myself, I mean just going to the YouTube comments under the songs and looking for them. I'm not smart, okay? But before we get onto that, I'd like to... Previously, I admitted to being stumped by a singular line in Grove Action that I thought didn't make sense in the context of Malefor, only coming up with a long-winded interpretation that I didn't want to include in the video due to its length and how stretched out it was. But to one phantom shall it give ruthless arms against another spirit is the only line I could not find a meaning for. If we're sticking to the theory that these lyrics represent Malefor, this doesn't make sense, so I'm just gonna ignore it. However, one commenter, Seb Lorcan, has a theory regarding that particular line. Lorcan had a similar idea to me, that it's not just a statement about Malefor's dislike for Spyro, it's actually about both the relationship between the purple dragons and the grove itself. With that context, but to one phantom shall it give ruthless arms against another spirit talks about the ancient grove, how it's an obstacle in Spyro's journey because the land has suffered Malefor's wrath and now despises purple dragons, being corrupted with Malefor's evil. Also, in the concept art for one of the grove enemies, it is said that all of them are mind-controlled into protecting the grove itself. It seeks to protect itself in any way possible, thus becoming ruthless. Because of my attitude, people thought I found the religious connection unfitting in my Black Power segment, which wasn't the case. I was 100% right about the lyrics being an overly dramatic representation of Spyro's thoughts at the moment. Hey, Editor Brutal here. After writing and recording the voice lines for this script, Twilight Traveler came up with another theory regarding Black Powers. I don't have the time to talk about it, but just pause the video and read it if you want. I have no other place to put it in, so I'm putting it here. I have not found any translated songs for A New Beginning except for one line from Cynder's Convexity boss fight. This can be a reference to what Terador says in a cutscene before we enter Cynder's lair.
All warriors feel fear at one time or another, Spyro. There's no shame in that. What I was going to say is that all warriors feel fear, Spyro, but only the most valiant among us can face that fear and master it. From what I saw of you on munitions...
Turns out I did not talk about every song from the Myth of Pit Forever Darkness since I missed two songs, one being Arborick Boss and the other one being Mountain Fortress. Also, the lyrics for most of the songs are provided by a guy named Przemek W, and I promise you, if I ever see this man in public, I'm gonna kiss him on the mouth. These videos wouldn't be possible without his knowledge. Let's attack Arborick first, because I have absolutely nothing to say about this. I mean, what can you come up with from this? My only real interpretations were that the song talks about the ancient grove, but even then you have to stretch it out a lot. Maybe the lyrics actually talk about how cruel the world is and how it will remain this way. This is the only song that truly stumped me, but it has the word bitch in it, so it's funny. If some of you want, pause the video here, come up with your own explanation and leave your idea in the comments. I'll pin your comment if I find the idea good enough. This song plays in Eternal Light's final level, and I'm very confident that it's meant to represent Spyro's thoughts and all that he's been through. This line is a reference to how many things Spyro has survived on his journey, crossing oceans and defeating countless soldiers/pirates. Fucking Jason Brody. This is just a simple statement how, despite being strong enough to survive all of that, Spyro is still afraid, presumably of himself. This line references the pirate dogs that kidnapped Spyro and how all dragons had a bounty on their heads, as mentioned by Hunter in the letter.
They say that the Ape King himself has placed a bounty on you, and all of the dragons.
This one is about Gaul's loyalty to Malefor. Being just a pawn, he wants to serve Malefor when he returns, believing that if he obeys, Malefor will gladly help the ape kind prosper. Yeah, that's definitely gonna work out in the future. There is no more Eternal Night songs left. It's the only thing I know for real, so with that we can move on to... Dawn of the Dragon is special as it wasn't made by Chrome but by Mistral from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. It's actually the most controversial game out of the trilogy because Cynder is no longer black. But when it comes to the gameplay, it's pretty good. You have a dodge button and 4 different styles of attacking enemy. Oh no.
Jackpot!
And done. Despite the huge differences in gameplay, the music writers remain the same, and some of the songs from previous games are reused in a smart, not redundant way, even though I won't be talking about this yet. When it comes to the songs with lyrics, there's not a lot of them, but they are still noteworthy and interesting in their own right. I mean, if they weren't, I wouldn't be sitting here discussing it with you now, would I? The lyrics for this come from Virgil's Aeneid Book 9, which highlights the cruel and barbaric nature of war. Okay, now how do I make this into a Devil May Cry reference? The lyrics themselves do not speak about Malefor or Spyro, but instead give us insight into what someone who defended Warfang for 3 years of relentless war might think. And more specifically, these 3 lines symbolize how some question if God's intent for them to wage wars against one another, or did the warmongers stray further away from God by pursuing their own cruel nature? When did I get so good with corny shit? The lyrics are about calling the soldiers into battle. What's interesting is that the first 2 parts, besides this line but it's unimportant, come from the previous songs. That's why I'm gonna focus on the third part since it's the only one I can say something new about. The unfriendly light mentioned in the song is more of a general statement about the golem attacking the city, while a path being made through the enemy symbolizes how now that Spyro and Cynder are in Warfang, they'll help in protecting it. Nothing interesting but cool nonetheless. This track plays during the Burned Lands level. I know, shocking, but this also means that it plays directly after the death of Ignitus, and the lyrics are exactly about that. The first part is supposed to be a representation of Spyro's thoughts, the beautiful Spyro being Ignitus and evil shadows being Malefor and his army. Second part, however, can both reference the speech that Ignitus gave Spyro during the ending and him being able to live on as the next chronicler. Finally, a straightforward song, Jesus Christ. Well, we are finally here. The tracks that play during the confrontation with the big main body. Mr. Open a Gateway to Hell with his sheer evilness is finally ready to fight instead of hiding like a little bitch. While Eternal Night songs are much more diverse in terms of lyrics, instead of singing about various topics, Dawn of the Dragon seems to stick to one theme in particular, it being war, which is very fitting since it's the only time in the series where we see an actual battle in-game instead of some 2D artwork. The Phase 1 lyrics speak about the invention of the first sword and how much death it has brought upon mankind, while Phase 2 seems to ask the question if it's the humanity's fault for turning the blade against other humans instead of wild animals. When it comes to the meaning for the game, it took 4 hours of losing my fucking marbles, but I think I found a pretty good interpretation of the lyrics. I went through many interpretations of these lyrics, even going as far as to theorize that it actually doesn't stray away from its source material. And that essentially means it could be dumbed down to war and civilizations equals bad and cruel. But then it hit me that the lyrics are actually very fitting to the story and more specifically Spyro's thoughts in his current situation. They are all from Spyro's point of view, and if you are asking what's my source, it was revealed to me in a dream. We'll start from Phase 1. This line is meant to symbolize both Malefor's powers and what he did with those powers. Which wasn't very fucking nice. This references Malefor's ferocity and lack of self-control, it being the reason why he was exiled. After he was exiled, he waged war against all of dragonkind. And now he wants to destroy the world. Bit of a downgrade, TBH. Phase 1 is about Malefor's backstory from Spyro's point of view. Seeing as we only know the basic outline of his time before becoming the Dark Master, the lines perfectly fit with the Chronicler's story about Malefor from Eternal Night. And while Phase 1 seems to be related to everything that others have said about Malefor in the past, Phase 2 can be interpreted as Spyro thinking about what Malefor said about purple dragons and their purpose in the cutscene prior to the fight. Malefor truly is the type of dude to casually call your GF a lying hoe before dying in the most underwhelming boss fight in the franchise. Anyway, the topic of Spyro being paranoid about becoming like Malefor goes way back to Eternal Night during a cutscene with the Chronicler, and while Spyro doesn't express this audibly during the initial confrontation with Malefor, the lyrics of Phase 2 seem to suggest that this insecurity of his is still there, albeit more subtle thanks to Cynder. This line is meant to represent Spyro's thoughts about Malefor and his perception of the life that he was gifted, because at the end of the day, if Malefor is right, he's just trying to fulfill the destiny that was bestowed upon him. While the first line was more about Malefor itself, this one represents Spyro's thoughts about the whole nature of purple dragons and questions if their powers are meant to bring destruction or if Malefor is high on crack. I mean, he does have blue... I fucking wrote that in the script? Nah, fuck this, I'm keeping it in, I don't care. I honestly love these lines because I think the what if Malefor isn't wrong thing should have been explored a lot more. Now the game tries to pull something like that in the last 5 minutes of it, but the story as a whole in Dawn of the Dragon is pretty lackluster, despite it being the one responsible for this cursed sub-series cult-like following. Well, I guess that's it. I've talked about every Latin song and I won't do the English ones because, I mean, come on, you guys know English, right? Remember to comment your own takes, constructive criticism, or you can just simply tell me to kill myself. Not promising that'll happen though, so don't get your hopes up. I wanted to thank you for 50 subs. I know it's not a lot, but it's still a whole lot more than what I thought I'm gonna get. So, I plan to stream some Spyro games and I already have plenty more Spyro related videos coming up, so if you don't wanna miss out on that, you can leave a like and subscribe.